So in this episode, what I want to do is talk about the past, because certainly in my line of work, the past kind of will crop up from time to time. And we've all had that situation, haven't we, in our lives where we think, if only it hadn't have happened like that, if it had happened like this instead, then I wouldn't be facing that struggle, or I wouldn't have this belief, or, I wouldn't be facing this kind of idea about myself, or this lack of safety that I'm feeling. So the past seems kind of an important part in our development, really, in terms of who we are today. And so it does crop up from time to time. And so does the idea of, well, can we change the past? Wouldn't it be great if we could change the past? And so in this episode, what I want to do is just kind of talk a little bit about the concept of the past. Like, what is it? What is the past? When we actually dig into what we mean when we're talking about the past, what do we mean? Because the past having this kind of impact on us, can we change the past? Well, the past isn't really a thing. That's the funny thing about the past. It's not kind of a place that we can actually visit. It's not a tangible thing that we can hold. It's just this word that we use for something that happened before this very moment now. And so when I interact with the past myself, like with my own past, when I think of the past in that sense, the way I interact with the past is through memory. So I don't actually go back to, say, 1981 or whatever, but instead I'll use my memory, I'll use my mind to kind of conjure up that moment in 1981. I don't actually visit there, but I use my imagination to reenact that particular incident in my own mind. And that really is what the past is, isn't it? When we, in terms of how we interact with it in the moment, it's kind of like we use our memory, which is really another way of saying that what we really do is we imagine and we reenact through our imagination an event that happened a long, long time ago. And the interesting thing about memory is that when we use our imagination to reenact that in our memory, we're actually changing things all the time, little details about it. Our memory is not like a photograph or like watching a video reel. We're not getting to see the exact thing. We're getting to see what we remember about it. We're getting to see the imaginal reenactment of that event. And studies have shown that, things like the attack on the World Trade Center, or when that big space rocket, the Challenger, blew up, or was it Apollo? I can't remember the name of it, but you know the one I mean. That these are called flashbulb memories. And so what researchers do is they get people to write down what they remember about the day, say the day after, really, really quickly. And then a few years later, they get them to write down what they remember about the day again. And what they find is that roughly about 50% of the details of the memory is incorrect. We might think, for instance, the first thing we did after 9/11 was we called our Auntie Mabel and said, "Have you seen what's going on? Turn the news on." But in actual fact, when we look back at what we said at the time, it wasn't Aunt Mabel that we called. It was our friend down the street, or maybe Aunt Mabel called us. But these details of our memory change. And so that got me thinking that when we ask the question, how can we change the past? If the past exists in our memory, if the past exists in our imaginations reenacting those events, then we're kind of changing our past all the time, aren't we? And we're not meaning to, but just the very process of how human memory works means that half of the details of our memories are no longer totally accurate. And so simply by the process of human memory, we're actually changing the past all the time. And so what I wanted to kind of talk about as a result of that is to kind of wonder out loud, what would happen if instead of changing the past through our imaginations, instead of changing the past through our memories in that kind of haphazard human way, which the researchers say happens when we change 50% of the details into something different. I wonder what would happen if we change the past intentionally, using the exact same process, using our imaginations to reenact something different. And there's actually been studies on this as well. So there's this thing called memory reconsolidation. And basically what that means is you take a memory and you overwrite all the kind of emotional side of it, all the kind of bodily responses, all the kind of learnings, those negative learnings we got from the incident itself, that we can rewrite all those by changing the memory, using our imagination to enact something completely different. And I was looking at a study the other day from a psychiatrist in Sweden who's actually put this to the test. Can we actually imaginally reenact our pasts differently, so that when we say, if only it happened this way, I wouldn't be in this mess. I wouldn't be having these struggles. I wouldn't be having these beliefs about myself. Well, by using the imagination, apparently we can. So seeing as our interaction with the past is through our memory, and our memory is just us reenacting, using our imagination, what happened, rather than actually seeing exactly what happened back then. These studies seem to suggest that one of the things that we can do in order to get ourselves feeling better, so the past is no longer touching our present, so the past is no longer touching our future, is to use this tool of imaginal reenactment to change the past. Not literally, but to change it in our imaginations so that it actually feels different for us in the now. So I wonder what you think about that idea. I know that I've used it with clients and it's been successful. So if you'd be interested in working with me, then come along to alunparry.com, that's ALUN, spelt the Welsh way, or go to liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk, and there you'll find, on those websites, you can find how to work with me, you can read my blogs and all sorts of other information. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.